Miss Bertha. Oops, I think we're live.
Yeah, it's happening. Oh no.
Good evening and welcome to Awakening Wednesday, our series on kitchen conversations. I'm so glad that you joined us today. And this is an opportunity for you to open up your heart and prepare for the feast that is coming before you. Open wide my heart. Open wide your heart. Open wide your heart. Open wide your heart. Open wide my 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 heart. So we take this space within our heart and we open it as we bless this universe. We bless each and every family and person. We bless the absolute knowingness that the divine power and presence is here right now. So take this moment, put your hand on your heart, just like a beautiful flute, to play this song for you. So as you press your hand, know that your heart is connected to every heart there is, that the heart of God is always right where you are, and that's everyone. This divine blessing that goes out into the world is one that fills the magnificent space of all time and place. So we know in this time that the will and spirit of the universe, of source, of God, of infinite intelligence, whatever you call it, of light, is at work. And we must keep our hearts open. Because with an open heart, there is an open consciousness and mind to receive. So as I know this for myself, I know this for each and every one. Take the breath right here. Envision a world that works for all. Open wide your arms, open wide your heart. Open wide your consciousness. Because the truth is, none of us are free until all of us are free. Standing in this space, just knowing. The panel I have tonight is very powerful. Wisdom, I'm calling them the wisdom panel, filled with such insight. They understand that none of us are free. Well, you better listen, my sister and brothers. The voice you can hear calling across across the years. Yeah. Oh, oh, oh. Hey. Well, you better listen, my sisters and brothers, 'cause if you do, you will hear there's a voice still calling across the years. And they're crying across the ocean, and they're crying across the land, and they're crying until we all understand that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Where there are people in the darkness and they just can't see the light. If you don't say it's wrong, that says it's right. We got to pull for each other. Let our brothers know that we care. Got to send the message out loud and clear, 'cause none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Oh, yes. Solomon Burke, Ray Charles, thank you for that wonderful song. Linda Ely, jamming it out. So let's get ready for an amazing video. And then after that, I'm going to bring the Wisdom Council in, y'all. Oh, yeah. Enjoy this video.
Racism means basically like
a large part of a race feels that they're superior to another race. And so not only do they believe that, but they act on it.
Examples would be in class. Sometimes I'd be the only black kid, and we read a book like, I don't know, Huck Finn, and then there's that uncomfortable moment, the magic word come up, and people would look at you and you're like, what's his reaction, and things like that.
I was walking home from school with this one white girl, and we just gone off the bus, and we were almost home, and there were these group of black kids that just gone out of school, and she was like, oh, let's cross the street, there's a group of black kids, I don't want to run into them. And so she told me, which I don't even know why she would do that.
I used to wear a sweatband like just to reinforce my wrist, and I had a teacher come up to me and say, you should take it off because it looks gang affiliated.
I've been in situations where, you know, I had to cross the street because I didn't want to scare the white lady that was walking.
I would actually, it would get to the point where I would start to count how many times a woman would clutch her bag.
When I was 16, I was leaving my mom's house in my pajamas, which had snowmen on them, with my brother, and we were actually stopped by the police rather aggressively.
I've been stopped by the cops on my way between classes because we have two separate buildings, walking from one building to the other building, as my white students in the same class walk by me.
It's kind of upsetting because we live in a world where my mom has to be afraid when I walk outside from the people that are like meant to protect me. And I don't like when my mother feels like that. You know, I love my mother. I want her to always be happy.
You know, I walk tall, I keep my head up, try to be very articulate and polite. And so, of course, I was like, okay, I'm going to be fine because I act a certain way. And of course, that has absolutely nothing to do with it. The way people perceive you, is not up to you.
My parents taught me, cops are your friends. You're supposed to, they're here to protect you. But all I'm seeing is the opposite. So how can I not be afraid when I feel like I'm being hunted? When I feel like I'm there to fill a quota?
We are in a so-called free society. And as a black man, we literally don't feel free. We don't know what freedom is.
Every time we're killed, the first thing you see on the news is, criminal record. Or something like that. So from the second the bullet hits us, already we're starting to be dehumanized.
With black people like myself, we don't get as many chances as they do. So you have to be aware and you have to watch out and you can't mess up.
This was an extremely emotionally taxing process for me in terms of coming to terms with maybe the nature of racism in my own life and in this country and in this world. And if you wait until somebody is 12, 13, and 14 to put that on them, it can be really difficult.
My dad, he's just like the honest one. He's like, listen, son, like there are things in this world, like you kind of have to watch out. He doesn't want me to live in fear, but he wants me to be aware.
I want people to know that I'm perfectly fine and I'm not gonna hurt anybody or do anything bad. I should be judged about like who I am and and what kind of person I am.
My parents would tell me, especially my mom, she would tell me, you have to endure, you have to muscle through it. And this is no different. It's a part of being a person of color in America.
And there's a certain comfortability associated with that, because if I know that something is inevitable, then I know how to deal with it. Fortunately, I've had parents who have said, this is what you do.
Mom and Dad, I'll be fine because you did a good job raising me. You gave me all the resources and the time, and the blood, sweat, and tears to make me a good man, an honorable man, and the foundation to survive in this country.
I want you to know that I will act in an appropriate manner and do everything that you told me to do because I do love you, and I know that everything you say is not for a reason and not just to talk, and I love you.
Welcome back. Well, we're getting ready to bring in the Wisdom Council. We have the Reverend Judy Ann, Frederick Jackson, and Frederick Southern III. So get ready for an amazing time. Let's bring the panel in.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. So, looking at that video, my question would be, has civil rights, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now, yeah, it's better.
Okay. The civil rights movement, have we really had movement? And I'll start with Reverend Judy Ann.
Thank you. Gino, I thought about this. We've had the illusion of movement. What we did was we kept the same building blocks. We just moved them to different places on the board. Meaning we said, 1965, we have integration. We have Bloody Sunday. Yes, you can vote. But we're going to change things up. We're going to incarcerate a lot more of you We're going to take you out of the voting pool. Yes, you can have any job, but we're going to build in some things where you aren't as successful as other people. So for me, and I'm going to say this because I did not grow up in a Black environment. I grew up in an all-white environment. And I remember watching the civil rights movement. I feel I thought for a long time
Yes.
that the needle had moved. And all we did was take the same blocks and move them around on the board. I don't think that there has been progress because the conversation we are having today about George Floyd, they had in 1954, 55 about Emmett Till. They had in 1991 about the young man in Los Angeles that was caught on film, Rodney King.
Yes.
And everyone said, oh, we've got him now. We have it on film. No, we move the pieces around. So I don't really think that we have made the progress that we think we have. I think this time we stand a better chance of making progress. And the only reason I say that is we have nothing else to distract us. In the past, with Emmett Till, with Rodney King, America was like clutching their pearls, and they were shook up for 2 or 3 days, and then they went back to work, and everybody went back to their life. Well, now we all in timeout. You know, everybody's
Right.
at home. We're all in the same timeout penalty box, and many people don't have jobs. We are recreating. We're not getting together with friends. We get to look at our behavior. And I think for the first time, white America is embarrassed, appalled, ashamed, and they are saying, oh my God, is that what we have done to you? I've had white people act like, oh my goodness, Jude, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, what alternative universe have you been living in that you didn't see? But I mean, I'm serious. I know white people that are seeing this with new eyes, new
Yes.
filters. They are seeing our humanity because they bought into the integration story also.
Beautifully said. All right, Frederick, what would you like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
add to that?
I was moved by these young men in this film. Their message to me was the same as Julianne. Things haven't changed very much. They're still getting the same message from their parents of being cautious as I did as a young man. And I will admit the difference, as John Lewis said, he was right there almost until he died, that this movement now going on has a different feeling to it. And he believed in his dying breath that things are happening that didn't happen before. So
Absolutely.
when I was a young man, I was right up there with John doing SNCC, and my aunt who raised me was scared to death
Yeah.
because she figured, oh, one lunch counter later, or one walk-in or sit-in later, I'd be gone. But like John, I had that passion, and even though we came away from it not with what we intended, it eventually started to evolve. And it's still evolving. And I agree, we got more people idle. And in this particular instance, there are more white people in the mix, if not almost exclusively. What's sad about the Portland situation, they're getting beat up like we were, back in the 60s, but there's something else going on, which is the deeper issue. Once you jump out there and join the black folks plea for equality, you're discounted from the white community. So you're just liable for being beat on and just it's
Yes.
sad. But
Yeah.
I have to say, John Lewis, Dr. King, and the message both of them put out is we shall overcome. And this is now, not someday. It's happening now. The circumstances are different, but it's happening now. And I think we'll come away from this with a much different position than we did, 50 years ago. So I'm done.
Thank you, Frederick.
Thank you.
Southern.
Okay, I thought the video was very powerful. I thought the young men were very mature in their response, and I think the question was, excuse me, has there been any movement since the civil rights movement?
Yes.
And I feel there has been some. It's been some movement. I was on Facebook, but then I deactivated my account. But before I did that, I saw more black professionals. I saw more black young men and women graduating from high school and college simultaneously. I saw more blacks graduating with double degrees. I saw black mothers and daughters graduating and walking across the stage at the same time. I see more millionaires and billionaires, professionals than before, and they're pulling up some behind them. So I believe there has some movement has been made. Equally, those that small percentage that don't like us, they're actually turning up their hatred as well. You see, and I looked up that word, not so much the word, but the suffix ism from racism, and it's a practice, it's a system, it's a philosophy, and so what's being done is a turning up of their philosophy to so-called keep them in place or keep them in their place. And it's a tough deal right now. It's a tough deal for everyone all the way around. And then, as I heard one of the panelists say, I think there's a lot of white people out there that are embarrassed of their own white people, doing what they do and showing what they do. And video cameras are catching it all. So back to the original question. Yeah, I do believe there has been some movement, but at the same time, it's been met with a lot of resistance.
Beautifully said. I'm going to tag in on the ism because I really believe that's what the movement was supposed to be about. And yes, we've got some millionaires, we got some cars, we got some houses, we even have Oprah with a network. But what we still don't have is any power. And all of the control is out of our hands. And so, in one way, yes, we've gone to school, we've gotten degrees, but the racism, as you said, this systematic dis-ease is still in place, and it's rooted
Yes.
even more deeply now to me. So my question for you would be, what do you feel? Well, let me rephrase that. I'm going to go this way. To be black in America right now, what are your feelings? I'll start with you, Frederick.
It's a double-sided coin for me. And I think part of it is the way I talk, and the lifestyle I lead is quite different than my brothers and sisters that live in Southeast,
Mm.
which is, a different part of the city where low income people live, essentially. I still feel
So you saying you don't really
unsafe.
feel the racism?
I don't feel the racism until I'm confronted mostly by law officers.
Mm.
That I think is alive and well. It's so subtle that you almost miss it sometimes, and some of it is, I'm their friend, therefore I am not a racist, so therefore, you know, I've had that since I was a young man, being the one and only graduating from high school when I started out with 75 kids that didn't make it.
Mm.
So right now in these times, I'm a little sad because it just feels we still have a long way to go.
Thank you, Frederick. Southern,
Mm.
what does it feel like for you to be a black man today in America
Wow, that's a
or in the
great
world?
question. Okay. Wow. That's loaded, and I like what Mr. Frederick said. There is a double-sided coin for that, and it's being exposed more and more. You know, I hate to. I don't like to. I don't want to walk around with a chip on my shoulder, always walking around with my guards up. I don't want to do that, but a part of me does, and I have to stay alert
Mm.
because based on history and what's going on now, because the history hasn't changed. So yes, I am very alert, and at the same time, I'm the type that tries to head it off before it even tries to raise its ugly head. Um, I'm a very happy-go-lucky, jovial type of guy, and what I'll do, I'll speak first. Anytime I see law enforcement here in Los Angeles, I live here in the city of Los Angeles, West LA, and I walk 4 or 5 times a week. And when I see the cops, uh, I speak to them, no matter what race they are. I speak, I engage in a conversation, and I'll ask, how many steps you got in so far today? And we'll have a quick conversation about that. And then when I'm in the store, I'll speak and say hello or acknowledge. And that's my way of trying to head it off. I know it's still there. And yeah, it's a tough deal right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Reverend Judy Ann, what is it like being a black woman in America?
Hey, I'm here to tell you, baby, sometimes that black tax is more than I want to pay. That's just what I'm going to call it. I'm going to keep it 100. I call it the black tax. Because it was interesting because when I heard about COVID and I was kind of following it at first and there was all this concern, I was thinking, how is this going to impact black people?
Mm.
Go back. You don't have to take my word for it. There was a lot of concern. But when they said black people were disproportionately dying from COVID, the conversation began to shift a little bit
Mm.
about it wasn't as critical because it's like, wait a minute, who's dying? Oh, hey, this we might be on to something. We killed two birds with one stone. Go back and look at how the conversation changed when, for about 2 or 3 weeks, it stopped being about COVID and America, but about COVID and Black America. And everything was disproportionately discussed in reference to Black people and underlying conditions. Again, it's that black tax. As a black woman, and like I said, I'm a native Alaskan. I grew up in an all white environment. I integrated an oil industry. I was like the first black woman to work out in the oil field for BP Amoco. It was BP oil at the time. And when I got the job, I thought I got it because I interviewed well and I was pretty sharp and I had worked for the company for 3 years. They didn't tell me till I got there and I looked around and no one looked like me. And I said, they hadn't had a me before they had me. So not only did they bite off a big piece of the candy bar, they got off a real big piece with a big personality. And it was very interesting. So what I will say that, I say that to say this about being a black woman in America. And for whatever reason, spending all my working career with men, you put sexism and racism in a bag and shake it up, they're going to hit the ground about the same time with the same amount of attention and intention. And as a black woman, what I notice is I never was the standard for beauty. I can't, being a dark skinned black woman with Negroid features growing up where blonde hair and Becky with the straight hair was all the rage, it was very assaulting to my femininity, to my self-esteem, because growing up in the 50s and 60s, being dark was not popular. It was not in vogue. So I struggled with being a black woman. But one thing I can tell you about it, girl, I'm resilient. You drop me off anywhere, I'm gonna make it out. Hey, you see me in a fight with the bear, you better help that bear out because he gonna have a situation on his hands. Because black women are resilient.
Yes.
We came to this country,
Amen.
they raped
Yeah.
us, and we survived. We came to this country, they separated us from others that spoke our language, we survived. They took our men away from us, we survived. Slavery was over, black men couldn't get a job, black women could always cook, clean, and be Mr. Charlie's mistress. We survived. They switched the game, I switched with them. We are resilient. We don't stop to cry because we have children to feed and men to support. So we just say, you know what? Okay, I'll be your Aunt Jemima today, but I've got to take care of my family. So America has taught me to be resilient. I know what I'm made out of. I walk with that flavor. I walk in the room and you gonna know I'm there when I hit the door. See, Karen ain't gonna mess with me. Becky and Amy, they're not messing with the Judy Anns of the world. Because, see, Jude from around the way, she gets you straight. You ever notice who these Karens and Beckys mess with? They mess with people, and every time you see these videos, you see people explaining themselves to Karen and Becky, and they, well, what are you talking about? Well, I'm going to call the police, and I'm going to tell them that I feared for my life. Oh, really? Well, let me call them first, because I'm going to give you something to tell them. So being a black woman in America today, I am proud to be a black woman. I like my nappy hair, my full lips, and my shapely hips because for many years I was uncomfortable. For many years I wanted to cry. And I always had to smile because of the stereotype of the angry black woman. And here's the thing, when you have a face that looks like this, look at this. You look mean. See, I send this in first. Because, see, a smile is a universal language. But you get it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
They play the game, and I tell black children, and I'm so glad one of the other panelists mentioned about blacks getting education. Yes, that's true. But here's the part that is painful for me. You can go and learn how to write, speak the King's English, and regurgitate whatever they are teaching you. But until you learn the money game, you're gonna stay
Mm.
out of the race. Black people are still far behind in knowing the money game. We think because we can buy certain cars and wear certain labels and live in certain neighborhoods and be up to debt up to here, but you need to learn the money game. That's where you say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Black power. You must know the power of your dollar. We do not recirculate our money in our community. Every other community does that. That's where we're falling behind. That's why I say integration, it was in concept, it was a great idea. But before integration, we had hotels, banks, funeral homes. We had all of the infrastructure to take care of us. Integration, we lost all of that. We
Yes.
own nothing. And when you own nothing, you have no bargaining power.
Well
And we
said.
can't just say, I move out of the neighborhood and all my relatives are there. And it's a hard conversation to have with black people because we don't grow up discussing money. We grow up discussing the lack of money.
Right.
Mm.
That's really
Our
well
conversation,
said.
oh, I have to work hard for these dollars. Money don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Money is the root of all evil. We ain't got it like to be. I don't want to hear that. I tell my grandchildren, save some money. I'll match you dollar for dollar, and I'll teach you how to
Mm.
invest. Because until we create generational
Wealth.
wealth, we're going to keep being at the mercy of the system. I can't tell you how many black people are educated and they don't have $10,000 in the bank.
You're absolutely true. You're absolutely true. I mean,
I'm
and
off my soapbox now.
Ah,
your soapbox been good. You hit a few points that I want to ask the gentleman. Money definitely is a big challenge for most African Americans, black folks, black people. Our parents and grandparents, things were stolen and taken away that would have
Mhm.
given generational wealth. So, that being said, Southern, how well do you know your ancestry?
That's a great question. But I want to hear from Mr. Frederick. I'm gonna come back to that, but I
Okay.
want to hear from him from the previous question you asked that Dr. Judy Ann expounded on. I'd like to hear from him.
the,
Being black in
about this,
America,
What's it like to be a black man in America?
Well, the question that you asked Dr. Judy Ann.
Well,
that
you
was the
go.
same one
I
she just
asked her what
expounded.
was it like to be a black woman in
Woman.
America. Now she put a lot of things. She was on the soapbox giving a lot of information. But the question originally was, what is
what
it
is it?
like to be a black woman in
Okay,
America? And I
all
did
right,
ask Frederick what it
gotcha.
was like to be a black man. But is there a
Okay, so
particular thing that she
no, no, no,
said that
no, no, no. We're on the money game now.
okay, come
We're on
on,
the
bring
money
it.
Okay.
game.
Okay,
Yeah.
all
So,
right. So
Frederick,
I'm glad Dr. Judy Ann brought that up about the money game. And yes, you're right. When you don't have any money, you have very little options or no options at all. And
No
I was
power.
broke.
No
Correct.
power.
I was broke for a very long time, and what put me over the hump was that I had an accident um, on the job, and
Mm.
I sued the company, and matter of fact, I got paid 4 times from that company, and I was living with my aunt, taking care of my aunt at the time, and the first thing she did, she says, "You're going to start a retirement account. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Don't go past go. Don't collect $200. You're going to start this retirement account." And and I said, oh, so it bothered me. So that put me over the top. And then I started learning about stocks and mutual funds and all of that. And had it not been for for that accident and winning that settlement, I don't know where I would be financially.
Mm.
But she made me do that. In addition to that, I took care of her for 6 years, and I think somewhere around 4 or 5 years, I saved a paycheck a month. Just put
Okay.
it in my retirement account, and I started doing research and studying. I would call the broker every other week, bugging the crap out of them about the money game. So I got pretty good at it, and so when she died, and I was able to have access to my money, the broker asked me. He says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know.
Mm.
But one thing I know I don't want to do is punch a time clock. That's your job. Keep me from punching a time clock." He says, "Okay." So he kept investing my money and all that. And that's where it is right now. So what I've started doing is teaching my youngsters how to go on yahoo.com and look up stocks and see how well they
Yes.
performed, and mutual fund, what is a mutual fund and how it works and all that. And you have to think long term and resist the urge to buy that nice car that's going to rob you monthly from making a deposit into your retirement account. I went to visit my
Yes.
son. I went to visit my son, uh, let's say 2 days ago. The granddaughter comes downstairs, and I asked her about money. "Do you save money?" She said, "Yeah, I do." And blase, blase, blase. I said, "Well, okay, well, do you know anything about stocks and mutual funds?" She says, "No." I said, "Go get your laptop." So she got a laptop, and we sat down, and I went over some figures. I showed her how to look up stocks and what a symbol is and a ticker symbol, and how it performed uh, in a 52-week range and a 5-year range and all that. And my daughter came over last Saturday, and we sat down right here in front of this computer where I am right now, and I showed her the exact same thing, and I opened up helped her to open up a e brokerage account. That's
Mm.
like
E Trade.
Ameritrade, or
Yes.
yeah, or all the other names are not coming to me, but we opened that up and linked it to her bank account so she can make small deposits in there. I have a cousin who had several law settlements, and I said, "Man," I said, "what are you doing with money?" He's not good with it. So I called my broker. I said, "Hey," I said, "give my cousin a call and take him under your wing and show him how to invest his money that he won from a lawsuit." And as Dr. Judy said, when you don't have money, you have no power. Not like that,
You
you
have no.
don't.
Yeah.
Thank you, Southern. Frederick, would you like to add to that?
Julianne sort of touched one of those things that's overlooked a lot. Um, I would say when I was a young man, let's say 15, 17 years old, there were well established black businesses before we integrated.
Mm,
And they were part of the fabric where we supported those pharmacies, those doctors, those grocery stores that were black owned. And as we get into integration, those stores, like happening today, the black businesses are dying because they're not being supported by the community because there's no money, and plus the virus is hurting too. But there was a viable black economic base that disappeared when integration took on the forefront. There was never a lot of people like Mr. Southern that could pass the skill on to their children. So there's a purpose to this that's in our society that is now looked at as a caste system that's hidden among the racism that denies not only us, but Hispanic people, people of color, are not getting that look at the money picture for what it is. So we're looking at 10% of the population, that of which maybe 0.5% are the Oprahs among our the black community,
Right.
and it is about learning the economics of handling money and how it plays out in our lives. It's not the only thing, but in America, it's really the language of choice and the language of power that we see operating around us, and it certainly is playing out in Congress. Why those old men don't want to leave?
Absolutely.
But what
I
I
agree.
love about it, yeah, we're getting, those women are slipping in there. I love it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because things are changing. And John survived a long time in Congress, and he never sat down once or took money from other folks. He took his salary, and that was enough. And most of that he gave away, So, yeah, money and black folks is a place that needs a lot of healing, and it needs to be more than our sports representatives who make these giant salaries and buy these big cars and big homes. And I'm careful not to, feel resentful for their homes, but I think it's about consciousness, to look at something that somebody else is asking you to say means successful. And I think Mr. Southern and I grew up when you had a Cadillac, you were successful. And I see now that picture has changed because
Yes.
Cadillac got smart and moved their cars into young, successful, entrepreneurs that didn't have to be black. So, but that was a car of choice, that and the Buicks, and that showed you made it. And
Well,
it's still
Well,
let me just
expensive.
interject this,
Yeah.
that definitely money in the black community and people of color, for me, it is also a part of racism, because in the when we were segregating, there has been this breakdown within our own culture where we did not love ourselves. And so everything was about being a white man or woman. It was about looking and sounding and representing the surface and having no understanding of money, of saving, of definitely not investing. You had a very few, but as you said, Frederick, there were viable communities. And when the segregation was pushed, it did a few things. It broke that. It taught us not to support our own. And also, Reverend Judy Ann, as you beautifully said, we were not beautiful. They
They were not
made
beautiful.
us unattractive. And if you were darker, even within our own families, my mother had beautiful full lips, and she hated her lips because she was the dark. Well, she wasn't the darkest, but second in skin tone, and she had these beautiful full lips that she got teased about. People would make little comments, and so not only from white people, but a lot of times
From my
from
own.
your own people, from your family.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's another part of that. I'm sorry, Gino. I
No,
have
go
to
ahead.
throw this in. We were taught not to trust each other and
Yes.
not to value how we look because once Master took some of us and created the biracial children,
Yes.
they were closer to white and they had finer features and they became the symbol of beauty and the black race.
Yes, they
You
did.
know, growing up, if a girl was light skinned, she was pretty. She didn't have to do nothing else but be light skinned, and
High
she was
yellow.
automatically cute.
Yeah,
High
hi,
yellow,
Yella.
light
That one.
skinned. She was
The red
automatically
bone.
she red
Red
bone.
bone.
She was automatically cute. She didn't have to do anything. And pray tell she didn't have any hair. Oh
Oh,
my God, she was pretty. And so we learn to value those things. Oh, well,
yes.
I'm lighter than so and so. That, and we did that amongst ourselves. And I'm going to tell you how strongly I believe economically um, racism dictates our lifestyles. And I'll tell you why. When you look at history, whenever Black people have become powerful economically, Black Wall Street in Oklahoma, Wilmington, South Carolina, Rosewood,
Mm,
Philadelphia. Whenever Black people became economically powerful, the village was destroyed.
yes.
So when you hear people say, well, why don't y'all work and get something? Because when we have worked to get something, it was destroyed. And what they used in 3 out of the incidents I just named, there have been 5 major massacres. And out of those 5, 4 of them, 4 of them, our village was brought down because a white woman said a Black man
Mm.
said something to her.
Yes.
So they came and burned the whole village down behind a white woman. And in every case, it was not true. Emmett Till, the lady that accused him 3 years ago, she confessed on her dying bed
Mm,
that he did not assault her or insult her. She confessed, but she let them kill a 14-year-old boy behind a lie. Oklahoma, same thing. Wilmington, South Carolina, go out there and look at it. Same thing. Rosewood, same thing. Every time because I'm going to tell you something, all this fighting for your rights, until you can impact the financial mechanism, you're just spinning your wheels. Until you take your dollars out of that, if you look at Asian people, you look at Hispanic people, they got their own communities and they hang a sign, Koreatown, Chinatown, East LA. You go over there, all the stores cater to what they need.
yes.
We don't have that. We don't have it in our own stores, in our own neighborhoods.
True.
So, so when you look at how do we change the narrative? Look, when you control the narrative, you control the flow. The people that edit the books, are you aware that they're showing slavery as not It was almost like a union job. The
Yeah.
textbooks in Texas are saying, little boy came home and told his mama, a friend of mine, Mom, I didn't know that about slavery. She said, no what? Oh, when they got through working, they could just, lounge around until the next day. She said, where'd you get that from? Oh, it's in our books. When you change the history, then you get to make it look the way you want it to look. And that's what's happening in America. That's why situations with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Oscar Grant. Hey, look at the Central Park Five.
Oh, yes.
5 young kids went to
Yes.
prison for 12 years for something they did not
Did not
do.
do. Did not do.
And no one said they were sorry. The city of New York
Has
would
still
not
not said.
apologize.
Yes.
Has not never apologized for taking their lives away from them.
Now, that being said, leads me to this question because our police department, uh, just the system of racism, do you feel that when the system, starts to
Mhm.
think, oh, they're getting something together. They're pulling themselves to another level. Do you think that it's a conscious thought to instill fear through police brutality?
Yes, I think fear is a way. Let me tell you something. Fear is a way to keep us disenfranchised. You just notice it in your own neighborhood, how they show the victim and the perpetrator. If the perpetrator is black, the news will show you the perpetrator.
Yes.
They'll show you the victim if the victim is white. Less often are they going to show the white perpetrator. You
Very
look at
true.
the targets. The targets are all black. They did training here, and a friend of mine who worked for the social services said, you need to change those targets. Well, we've always used
Mm.
black targets. She said, subconsciously, you're dehumanizing dark skin. You
Wow.
don't think about it. You don't think
Hmm.
about it. Yeah, I think, and I do some work in the prisons, and to go into the prisons, and a lot of people, there's a movie out called 13th. It's on
Yes.
Netflix, and
Yeah.
it talks about the penal system and how it came into be. And it came as a result after slavery ended in the South. They said, we got all these black men standing around. They came out with vagrancy laws. You
Yes.
vagrant, you go to jail, we rent you out. And people would come and get them and work them like mules, and they weren't invested in them. So that was a way of incarcerating black men that weren't working. They would rent them out. I can tell you several prisons in California outside of Fresno that I have been to March 1st, as a matter of fact, of this year before COVID. And I'm like, what's in that building? They make laser lens over there. They pay the prisoners $1.85 an hour.
Wow.
But a third of that goes to the prison retirement, a third goes to the state, and the prisoner gets to keep a third. A third of $1.85. You do the math. I saw all these dogs walking. Oh, y'all got pets up in here? They training dogs.
Oh
They're getting
my.
paid to train dogs at the prison. The prison complex went from 300 and something thousand people in the 70s to 3+ million people in the 20s, in 2000 and something.
Yes.
How does this happen? And disproportionately, it's people of color.
They've made us the criminals. As they said in that movie in the 13th, that instead of saying the N word, they made us criminals. So, with that,
Yes.
uh, Southern, do you feel that fear is a way that they control, they be in the system, police brutality, that it is a way of controlling people of color and black people especially.
Yeah, fear has always been a great manipulator. Um, I used to work at the post office. I worked several jobs, but the post office was one of the ones I hated the most because I hated that place. I really did. Because they manage by way of intimidation. And if you don't do this, you get written up. If you don't do that, you get written up. If you get written up 3 times, then you get suspended. And if you get suspended 3 times, then you're out of a job. Then where are you going to where are you going to go making $2,000 a month? I'm like, well, hell, I can't hardly afford to live off of it now. So what does it matter? When I discovered that that was their way of managing, then I became a threat. And I hated bullies then. I hate bullies now, and that's exactly what is done to cripple the person they want to control and maintain control. And then the level of fear and all that, it goes to the next level when they see that it's not effective. One of the things Dr. Judy had mentioned, that yes, when slavery ended, um, they had to come up with a way to control all these undirected black people, and that's why the police department came about, to direct and police these loose blacks that have no direction. Well, we couldn't have any direction simply because we never had that. We were always controlled and told what to do. And
Right.
to me, police departments are racist and racism.
Oh, yeah.
They they were established to control and direct the blacks away from the other neighborhood, keep them in their place or across in that area. So yeah, fear and they have a way of just doing it and sneaking up on you. And again, when you show that you're on to it, you know now it's a problem.
Frederick,
Yeah.
with your kids, how did you prepare them?
I have one child,
Okay.
and um, she knew a lot about what I was doing before she was born. I am amazingly proud of that lady. She is
Mm.
powerful, she's outspoken, and she's here. What did I do? I listened to her. I gave her what my experience has taught me. I continual keep her. We have dialogue of what's going on currently in the society, and the same thing goes with my grands. To know that someone who has come before you is there to answer questions about a world that's a lot different than the one they live in. So it's been interesting to look at how they are in North Carolina. you know, and I love them both. I love my grandsons and my granddaughter and my daughter, and she is an authentic person. And I haven't had much day-to-day contact with her except through texting and emailing and that kind of thing. But
Right.
I feel confident of where she is in her story, and how she is looking to prepare her children for what's unfolding for them, because they're already in a different generation and can expect a world hopefully different than the one I grew up in and the one that the folks that are my daughter's age grew up in. So the one thing I wanted to just touch before I leave, and that's the understanding that I grew up with in terms of the police,
Yes.
that they were not for us. They were to protect white establishment from, and still I think a lot of that is because even as we look to make modifications now, the unions of the police are just hardcore, no motion, no movement. So that's a big part of this racism we're dealing with now, and the attitude that confronts black people. And it's not just the men; the women get caught up in
Oh,
it too.
absolutely.
And it's a design in the system that's part of what we're talking about, the economic disadvantage to keep you in your place, all those old phrases that were around, and the police are basically licensed to do that. And until recently, they could beat you up and shoot you in the back, and nobody would say anything.
That impunity.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really still happening now.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it is.
i- the photo that you showed me of the family, the
Hmm.
mother
In
and
Oregon. I
sister,
mean,
was it
in
Aurora? In
Denver,
Aurora,
Aurora,
yeah.
Colorado.
Um,
Yeah.
just disgusting, where supposedly she was in a stolen vehicle. 3 or 4 cops surrounded the car, pulled out their guns on the family, made all of the girls, it was all women, and a little girl, 6 years old, made them lie face down on the
Uh-huh.
hot cement,
Asphalt. Yeah.
handcuffed them all. You could hear the baby hollering and screaming, and the other little girl saying, "I want my daddy, I want my daddy." And they wanted to stand on the leg that this is normal protocol. Well, number one, it was a motorcycle that they were supposed to be looking for, and a different state that the motorcycle was out of it, the license plate. But
Hmm.
you never asked, can I see a license or registration? To just immediately come with guns drawn on all of these black women. It's
Yes.
disgusting.
Children. It was one adult and the rest were
Children.
children.
They were,
And the
excuse
little
me.
bitty girl has on a little Burger King paper hat and she's
Yes.
screaming hysterically.
Yeah.
And this baby is laying face down on the asphalt. What grown man makes a 6-year-old child, a defenseless first grader, lay face down on the asphalt? And you
Exactly.
go, in what protocol book does that come out of?
That was disgusting to hear that they're going to say, oh, it was protocol for us to draw our guns. You don't
And
even
at one
know
point, there were
if
12 officers there.
12. 12.
12 officers.
You know, one of the things that technology has done, has afforded us, is that this gets caught on video now. You know, one of the things that I think our white brothers and sisters, unless you really were involved, you would not even believe that this could be true. That police officers could stop a car filled with a woman and kids and handcuff them without any evidence whatsoever. Just handcuff them, put them face down on the asphalt. Um, it's things like this. If you have children, Southern, how did you prepare your kids for this? Or could you?
Actually, I didn't. I didn't. I raised my family in Riverside, California,
Okay.
and I didn't even experience a lot of that out there. It happened. Um, I don't know how I would have reacted to it if I was confronted with it, you know. And my children on that block, they had white friends, and um, we were never confronted or addressed. And
That's a blessing.
it, yeah,
That's a
yeah.
blessing. I cannot say that. Reverend Julianne, how did you prepare your children?
You know, I have had the conversation with my grandchildren about what to do if you're stopped by the police. And, you know, our children, well, grandmother, I know you don't know nothing. What you know is to keep your hands on the steering wheel. You do not need to be right. What you need to do is come home.
Yes.
Don't worry about defending yourself, explaining yourself as yes, sir, no, sir, and let them take you to jail. We can always get you out, but do not defend yourself. Because I'm going to tell you something, I have witnessed enough recently. And if you stay up with any of the news and you look at the lynchings that are going on across America, um, and the dog whistle that is making it okay in America to be racist. See, now racists have a license because we got somebody in authority that has made it okay.
Yes.
And I call that the dog whistle. You know, he blows the whistle and the dogs come out. And they are doing it, and that's why you have all of a sudden all these people um, calling the police on black folks. I'm from Alaska. This lady did this in Alaska recently. The young man was jogging. What are you doing out here? He said, I'm running. And she cut him off with her car.
Oh my goodness.
She cut him off with her car. The next week, it was in the newspaper. White folks showed up in mass, 150 of them, to run with him.
Oh.
This is what I'm saying. The narrative in America, white people are seeing how vile racism is. And one thing that some of the people I know have discovered is a lot of the people that were your friends, you realize they're tired of hearing about Black Lives Matter.
There are a lot
Well,
of
their
people.
lives mattered to us for 400 years. Can you imagine how tired we were hearing it? But that was the only lives that mattered, were what white people wanted.
Yes.
And now black people are saying, and I'm going to tell you something. Be honest with you. I'm tired of being black. I just want to be an American. I just want to go about my business, pay my taxes, load my dishwasher, buy a few stocks and sell a few stocks. I don't want to have to defend who I am. And
Every
I
day.
don't live of the mindset that everyone needs to like me.
Exactly.
No, they're not. That's not important. But I want to be left alone. I don't want to be stopped or followed in a store. Like the little boy said in the video at the beginning, that they're getting stopped. Like Philando Castile,
Yes.
before they killed that young man, he had been stopped 49 times and he had never committed a crime. He worked and had been at the same job for 12 years. He was stopped 49 times. And it's not in every city. It's
But
like
it's
with
in
the
most
Rodney King
cities.
thing.
It's in
Oh,
most
yeah.
cities across America, and actually even across the world. The thing for me is that I don't want to have to keep justifying that I'm human. I'm a human
Right.
being. My brother is
Yeah.
a human being.
Yeah.
The question is always asked, well, why are we making George Floyd a hero? And as Bashir said last week, you made him the hero. We just want you to
Yes.
understand he's
He's
human.
human.
We
Yeah.
have a criminal system that says justice, that each of us get to go to trial, go to court, have our day in court, but you're deciding because of my
Hmm.
color that
I
I
don't get that.
I should die. And
Yeah.
you know it people have gotten a little tired. And
A
I,
lot of tired.
They got a lot of tired.
well,
A lot of
but
tired.
I
They're a lot
say
of tired.
I say this to them. We've been shuffling and scratching and clawing for years.
Hmm.
You're
Yeah.
tired is of
Hmm.
no importance. It's
Hmm.
of no importance. The important thing is that we're all human beings. And until everyone is looked upon like that, there's no time to be tired.
Yeah.
Because kids are dying just
Hmm.
because of the color of their skin. Or maybe they mouth off to a cop. That gives no one justification to take a life. So I
Yeah.
put this question to you as we get ready to close. Actually, I forgot. Did we get any chats happening? I didn't mention it before. Chats. Did we get anybody to chat us up? I didn't mention it. I forgot. That's on me. We have one chat. I forgot to mention it earlier. I was so busy ready to get into the meat of it with you amazing spirits. So, well, the question, we're now in 2020. Black Lives Matter is in the forefront. What can you or will you do to keep Black Lives Matter in the front? Because they've killed most of our leaders. So now we have to be the leaders.
Hmm.
So, what will you do or can do to keep this moving forward? And whomever wants to go first, go.
For me, is having the conversation. And I have a lot of white friends, as you know, Gino.
Yes.
Um, when they say, Jude, what can I do? I said, you know what? I'm going to task you with talking to your family, to your friends. Don't talk to me, because the only way we're going to turn this boat around is y'all have got to talk to each other. When you hear other white people making racist and othering conversation, well, you know, those people, I said, you need to have the conversation with them and let them know how you feel. If it's in your family, let them know. That's what we have to keep having the conversation. We have to keep voting. And it's not, we got to quit thinking it's all about the president. There are
It's
three
not.
branches: the legislative, the judicial, and the executive. The legislative branch of the government are those people you elect to go to Washington, and they are not supporting your interests. You need to take your tails to the polls and vote.
Yes.
I spoke at a Black Lives Matter event. Go to the polls and vote. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The Birmingham bus boycott lasted 381 days.
Mm.
People walked to work. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
And until you're willing to be uncomfortable, this will get swept under the rug like everything else. And two, start saving you some money. I don't care if you can't save but
Amen.
$10. Save that $10. I'm
Well
done.
said. Thank you. All right. Who wants to answer next?
I will.
All right, Southern.
We need to show up and speak up. And not only us, but our friends and we all have white friends,
Yeah.
because I think silence is the biggest crippler. I also believe that if you're silent about something, you agree with it. You're going along with it. So if you see it's wrong, say something about it. And as Dr. Judy Ann says, be willing to be uncomfortable, because yes, it is uncomfortable. And I see more white people today that are just sick and tired of white people stuff. They're sick and tired of it. And those are the ones that are speaking up. God bless them. I love them. And I encourage more of them to show up
Speak up.
and speak up,
Yeah.
because that's everything we do sends out a message. Everything we don't do sends out a message. And as Dr. Judy Ann says, save your money. You know,
Save.
Save your
Save them
money.
nickels.
teach our kids, empower them, show them. Um, Even today, I had a friend I was talking to, and I asked, "Do you have a living trust?" He says, "No, I don't." So I sent him a link about the benefits of living trust. My children, I have two daughters and a son, and one lives in Atlanta. All three of them are here in California. They're coming to visit me Saturday morning, and I'm going to cook breakfast for them.
Ah.
And we're going to go over my trust, my living trust. And I'm empowering my children about that. So you'll know what to do and what the benefit of a living trust is. So navigate around probate and all that. So we're having that talk. And I said, hey, it's uncomfortable, but that's okay, because death is a part of life. And, I'm not going to live forever. I'm going to live long, but I'm not going to live forever. So it's our duty to empower that generation behind us and the generation behind them, to constantly show them and give them direction. And I tell them I'm a parent. My parenting duties are over. Now I'm in the coaching. I'm in the coaching business. I'm your coach. I'm your father, but I'm also your coach. So I'm constantly coaching my children and grandchildren.
That's
Good for
beautiful.
you.
Thank you. Frederick?
Yes. What is interesting happening with the current events of more people are out of work and they're running out of money that are not black. So they are experiencing what we've been struggling with for generations. And it's also another kind of example of the dis-ease of not managing money, thinking a job is always going to be there.
Right.
So the other part of the question was, for me to be open for dialogue, and at the same time to make it important that one black person is not the authority and does not speak for all of us. And that's real critical to know, it's important, and to really have some dialogue with folks that don't look like the three of us or the four of us that are the ones who catch the most flack. I wanted to share with you when I met James Baldwin when I was in college, and he asked all of the black students to go to work in the community before you went to work, at the big house, the big man's job. That taught me lessons I never would have skipped. I still hear this young lady who answered me with, I'm having all these babies because the daddy's not going to be alive long enough to be here.
Oh.
And that is we're still not very far away from that. And it was a very powerful statement that was totally different than what social this social studies camps was talking about these young women and being promiscuous, and she was saying it was not about that. It was about trying to keep his legacy alive
Mm.
in his kids.
Wow.
So the dialogue needs to be open and inviting people from the whole cross economic spectrum of Black America to come forward and help these folks who have no idea what it's like to be Black in America, to bring in their voice. And I think John was clear. He was at it until he died, and he also was committed at a level that is my example of how you do it. I am thankful and grateful to be in this discussion this evening as well. I appreciate being invited, and it's heart touching to me, and I know this ease we call the COVID virus is also deeper than that. And I think it's in our consciousness around the world for us to get around to realizing we are one family.
Yes.
And God didn't create race. He didn't create nationalities. And when we leave here, you don't even know one person from the next. So it is about, recognizing that we're one family. A long time ago, one of my SOS profs told me there was $1 million circulating for everybody on the planet if it was evenly distributed. And that was it's probably more now. That was 20, 30 years ago. So it's still more now. But there's enough. And it's in the hands of a few. And sadly, as a lot of white folks don't understand, they're deprived as much as the Black folks in this country are, because it's in that 1/2 of 1% at the top that are holding on to that wealth. So I'm blessed to share this evening with you folks and know that this kitchen chat is part of the experience that will show up doing good.
Thank you. Thank you, Frederick. I want to thank each and every one of you, Reverend Judy Ann, Southern. This has been really beautiful and very powerful. Someone asked me, why don't I give bios of each person? And I said to them, because we sometimes have a bias if we know what a person does, where they've been doing it, how long, and we forget what is at hand. So, no, that's why I don't. And I told him that I would say it. So I am. I adore you all. Keep up the great work because we just getting started. And I'll see you again sometime soon on
Yes.
Kitchen
Thank you for the invitation.
Conversations. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Southern, thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Julianne, thank you.
Hey,
It
it's been
is.
good and it's been real good.
Yeah, it has. And it'll
Amen.
be recorded on Facebook, our YouTube channel. Go and subscribe, hit the bell. You'll know what's going on with us with Universal Spirit Center SD for San Diego on our YouTube channel. So it is our conscious giving time. I thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of this wonderful kitchen conversations.
Good night, all.
Night.
Good night.
Yes, what a beautiful night. Powerful night. I want to thank each and every one of you for being present, whether you're live or you see it after the fact. Just being here, it fills my heart, because this is the work, this is the way. This is one of the ways. Thank you, God, for everything. 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 We thank you for your tithes, for your time, for your talent. We thank you for supporting Universal Spirit Center. You can support us through PayPal. You can go to our webpage. We are grateful for you. Thank you, God, for everything. 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 Thank you. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, God, for everything. 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 Make sure you go to universalspiritcenter.org. Go onto our webpage, see all of the wonderful book studies we have. Sarah has a book study that's going on right now. Unfortunately, I think it's sold out. But knowing Sarah, she would make room for you. Dormini has a book study coming up soon. We have classes. We have foundation class that will become starting in the fall. So there are a lot of things happening. We are engaged. Get engaged with us. Be engaging. Our YouTube channel, we're looking forward to having you go on, subscribe, hit that bell so you'll know when we put a live video stream out there for you. We're on Facebook and also on our webpage. We are constantly doing the work. Our racial equality project is really busy doing things. We have kitchen conversations. We have other things on our webpage that are coming up. We'll be doing things with voting. So no, we have a movie night that happens at the end of the month, the last Friday. So just know, we are busy. We're busy staying active, staying on the front line. Staying on the front line, keeping the presence alive. We are sending love to all, and to everyone out there, to every protester, to everyone that has a feeling and a vibration to know that it's time. to everything that you think you might want to do to help, step into that. I encourage you, step into it. We need everyone. No one can be left out. We need you all. Send your love in all that you do. I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me joy. I send my joy over the mountains. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. I want to thank the amazing crew that's running this beautiful gathering. Dormini on the production, Sarah on the production, and Linda L on the keys and background. We thank you so much for being here and for sharing this word, sharing this video, sharing this space and time. I appreciate you. I adore you. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll get there. I believe it. Keep sending your love. Ooh, yeah, I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and